Welcome back to part two of our conversation. In part one, we explored autonomy, relief work, and the lived experience of technicians navigating traditional systems. Today, we're going deeper into entrepreneurship, resistance, and what the future of veterinary medicine could look like if technicians stepped into ownership at scale.
Part one was about experience. Part two is about vision and what it really takes to build something different. And let's talk about those parts that people don't see. For both of you, want to start out and welcome back. We're excited to have you back again for part two. I loved part one. But first question for you guys is entrepreneurship gets romanticized. What were the hardest parts that no one warned you about?
For me, it was isolation. It was definitely the isolation. I felt alone, and I felt like I was away from the industry. I felt like I wasn't included because I was off doing my own little thing, and I was alone in my car. So I actually myself turned a podcast to not feel alone, and that's when I created the group so we were not feeling alone. But definitely, I feel entrepreneurship and owning a business, isolation is going to be there because you don't have coworkers and you're by yourself. So that was probably for me.
Yeah, for me, it was more of just the unknown. I've always been a planner my whole life, and I've always liked to just know what's going to be the next step and how that next step is going to go, and not knowing, and kind of just having that faith in myself and just going for it, I think was the scariest part for me. And there were many, many times where I thought maybe I was making a mistake because I was so afraid of it not working out. But it definitely the unknown and financial security for me.
Right. That part, financial security. I mean, everybody knows ownership is a roller coaster.
Yep.
And especially when you're starting off, you get a little money here, then you get no money, and then you get a lot of money here, and then you get no money.
Yeah, so that lack of consistency and health insurance. There were just all those things where with a full-time job, you get all these benefits. And I think I recently just said at one of my jobs, because we were talking about maternity leave too, and they were like, oh, well, you won't get maternity leave. And I said, no, I'm like, I own my own LLC. I own my own business. I'm not a part of a business. So, and they're like, oh, I'm like, that's how they get you. I'm like, so you choose freedom over benefits. And I was like, and I chose freedom. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think the biggest thing for my aspect too was financials, always, like Ryan mentioned, always the case. And the consistency aspect of having that so you can maintain it. But I think the forefront, what I've noticed, especially within my journey, is like you mentioned, Jen, that questioning of the future or what's going to happen next, and not the uncertainty of what the future brings, and questioning, can I do this? Can I do that? Or what happens if this happens? Like, that was, I think, the biggest thing that I noticed, not only that I had to work through, that came to forefront with owning my own business, but also it holds you back from making that money you need as well. Because then you're having these fears and these things that aren't making you do the actions that make you move the needle. And so then you're not making the money that would give you that consistency. So I could see how it would formulate together in that aspect.
Right.
I'm going to deviate a little bit because Katelyn, you touched on something that was really important. What point in your entrepreneurship did you feel comfortable reaching out for help?
Mine, I had help immediately. Like, I knew I couldn't do it without that. I did just start the own business and then started certification programs and stuff like that. But I came across a business coaching community that helps coaches build their own business. And it was someone I've been following for a long time and had helped me in my own personal journey. And so I immediately jumped on that. And I know if I wouldn't have had that, the growth that I have, like, one, getting through my own crap and the fears and the self-limiting beliefs I had, to where now, like, it would take me double the time or triple. But not only that, the just how to become the best coach ever too, has also helped me grow in that aspect as well. So I asked immediately, but that's also because of the growth I've done before. Like, I've already had help beforehand, and I know it can take others longer if they're not used to that help. So I think mine's kind of unique in that aspect where I already was comfortable asking for it, in that way.
Well, and I definitely had mentors to begin with, and I had Michelle with the Unattached Vet Tech. Michelle had already created the Unattached Vet Tech Facebook group as well. So there were ladies in there that we could ask questions with. I had a couple of mentors. I had a vet assistant that had mentored me that had done relief in Texas. And then I had a licensed vet technician in the East that had a meeting with me and that had prepared me. And then, of course, Michelle's group also. So yeah, I mean, I don't take the success for just myself. I definitely had a lot of help as well. And that's what you need. You need those mentors. You can do it on your own, but it's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What about resistance? What resistance have you guys faced stepping into ownership? Michelle and Jen and Katelyn.
For me, the resistance was from people who were my coworkers, but also my friends. I thought that they would support me starting my own business. And I remember distinctly talking to one of my friends, and she's an LVT who has a VTS even. And she was like, "No, Michelle, I don't think it's going to work. I just don't think it's the right time. I don't foresee it working. And I would just stick in a clinic." Like, I thought my friend who was in the industry would be supportive, but I've come to find out it was everybody else around me who was supportive, who I wasn't expecting, friends, family. So that was like some of it that I faced. That was resistance, was just from immediate people who I've worked with before.
I would agree with that. And that's something that happened early for me as well. I mean, blending veterinary medicine and sports, people were like, "What are you doing?" Like, those things don't make any sense together. I mean, and it's still today, there's a lot of people who don't support it. But I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship and having that entrepreneur brain, is coming up with an idea. And I would even argue to say that is very underrated and undervalued in an individual is the big picture mindset, and being able to see that picture, then paint that picture, and then act it out, regardless of what anyone else is saying.
Yeah.
Jen, what about you?
Yeah, so when I initially went relief, it was very confusing to a lot of people, and I had a lot of negative comments, especially from coworkers at the job that I ended up quitting full time and turning to relief. It was a lot of, why would you want to go relief? Why wouldn't you want to just stay at a comfortable job? Why would you want to get rid of all your benefits? It just seems really dumb. I even had one of the doctors who is well respected there and also respected me a lot, kind of went behind my back and was telling people that I just didn't want to work in emergency anymore, which wasn't true, because I was literally doing interviews with other emergency clinics, and that was why I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it for me. I wanted the freedom. I wanted to be able to make my own schedule, and that's the biggest reason why I did that, is I wanted to make my own schedule, and I wanted to make more money, and I wanted to. I felt like I was a little bit spoiled at the clinic that I was working at, and I was losing certain skills, and I was like, you know what? I just need to throw myself into uncomfortable positions and get some skills back. Communication skills, talking to clients, things like that, and. Not everyone, like you said, Ryan, not everyone's going to understand that when you take those leaps and you do those certain things, because they don't understand that mindset, and it's really confusing for them. But I had a lot of people that I thought would be proud of me for taking that step that actually were angry at me at the time. And obviously because I was leaving the clinic and I was leaving them more short-staffed. And people are your friends when it's benefiting them. But then when it's not benefiting them anymore, or when you're doing something that they don't have the courage to do, there can be some backlash there. Thankfully, I had other friends that I knew were my true friends that absolutely 100% supported me in that. But not everybody's going to. So it is something that you have to deal with.
Mm.
You pointed exactly on what I was going to mention after, because it's similar too in that aspect of, for me, on you're not getting the support by those you expect. And especially because of my aspect, I'm sharing my own personal journey, which means there are people in my life that I'm going to paint in a way that they're not going to like. And it's not that I'm necessarily saying anything bad. It's more that, they might be perceived in a certain way, even though this is my truth and my story, right? And so that has painted some, hit or miss things with people in support. But also, like you said, the biggest thing is when people don't support most of the time, or they don't agree with what you're doing, it's most of the time because they can't put themselves in uncomfortable positions. They can't face their fears. They can't face their demons inside them that make them, wish they had the same thing, but they just have to, instead of being like, yeah, I wish I could do that, they have to bring you down to make you be at their level, because you seeking that for you makes them uncomfortable. So they have to bring you back to a place that makes them feel comfortable. And if you're off doing things that are uncomfortable, then they feel like they need to compensate and do the same, which they're not comfortable with. And so that's why they try most of the time to bring you back down with them. And so, yeah, I hear you completely. And that's something I've noticed as well. And I just want to say, you guys still pushing through it, and all of us still pushing through that, where people second guess or, try to plant those seeds in our heads of doubt, is such bravery and courage of pushing through it still with the unknown that you mentioned and the isolation that you sometimes feel. It's huge. It's huge that you're still pushing through it. And just wanted to point that out as well.
Michelle and Jen, would you say that resistance that you felt gave you clarity?
Absolutely. Yes. Because I knew I was doing the right thing. And I knew that if I was doing something that seemed crazy to other people, then, and I felt right about it, then it meant that's because you just feel stuck sometimes. I mean, sometimes you just get in this rut and you're doing something and you feel like you should be happy, and then you're not happy and you don't know why. And then when you try to actually change that, and it sounds crazy to everybody else, but you feel excitement and you feel good about it, and even though you're scared, because when you do anything like that, you're gonna be scared and you're gonna doubt. That's normal. That's normal human feelings. That's normal human behavior. Mm-hmm. But then when you start seeing people react that way, it also opens your eyes as to, again, like I said, if people like you as long as you're benefiting them, and then it shows people's true colors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Michelle, do you have anything to put on that?
Okay. Yeah, with the clarity, mine actually, it came later when I was really taking my business seriously and I was starting to take myself seriously. And the people who were in Vet Med, who essentially were like, no, you can stick to a clinic, they actually wound up leaving Vet Med and burning out themselves. Mm-hmm. So when that happened, I was like, maybe I was on the right track to start this, when I was at that moment of, should I continue? Should I go back into the industry, when I was at that time change? So yeah, it was that definitely helped clarify some things for me, and the decisions I was making. I was like, okay, even though I'm going against the grain and people aren't familiar with this, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah. Would you all agree with this statement that I'm about to make? Because it's something that I've realized about people who chase dreams versus others. I believe that happiness is something that you build. Happiness isn't something that just comes along. And I feel like a lot of people chase happiness, but they don't want to build happiness.
Yeah, or they don't recognize that happiness comes within you and listening to your feelings and your actual body. And instead of living life for others, you live life for yourself. And until you're aligned with your true self, you're not going to feel that happiness as well. I agree.
Agreed. Yeah, and it's something you may be happy and you may not realize it yet. And that's what it was for me, at least in the beginning. I was not happy.
Mhm.
And I just lost that, good dream job that I was going to retire from. But then over time, I realized even though I wasn't chasing happiness, I realized I was in a better mood. I would come home and I wouldn't splurge out everything that happened at the day. I would just come in and eat a sandwich and hang out. And I was just not in that flight or fight mode all the time. So for me, it wasn't about chasing happiness or trying to find it. I was in it, and then I looked back and I was like, "Oh, I was happy there 2 or 3 years ago. Why did I know that? Why did I know that back then?"
Mhm.
What's crazy when you say that? It's because like we think this happiness has to be this thing where we're freaking off, like so excited all the time that we're off all doing this. It makes me think of like when you hit a healthy relationship for the first time after being in toxic ones all the time. It's just like, oh, this is boring, but it feels good. It's weird, And so it's like that of like, oh, this is what happiness is. It's being happy with being bored and actually okay with being in your thoughts and just living and being present is what it is. And when you're chasing it, you're in your head all the time. You're not being present in the moment. You're not doing all of that. And so it's just different. And it was surprising to me too. Like you just said, like, oh, this is what happiness is. Interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think the world has made its own standard of happiness, right? Is we're all supposed to chase the same level of happiness, and we're all supposed to be chasing the same goal. And we all start that way, and then we all realize that we all don't have the same goal, and that's what makes us all so unique, and that's what makes the world so diverse, and that is what makes the world so great, is that everyone has a different goal, and everyone's happiness is defined differently. And sometimes we judge other people based on what makes them happy. And I just know I live a very simple life compared to some people, and I'm so happy with this simple life. It brings me so much joy and peace. And I know that, when it comes to certain happiness of keeping up with the Joneses or things like that, it's why who am I trying to impress? The only person I'm trying to impress is myself.
Mhm.
So
Love it.
So bringing happiness back to relief perspective and veterinary medicine, is autonomy happiness?
I think it's how you perceive autonomy.
Okay.
And I believe that if you want to be able to choose autonomy for yourself, and you want to be able to like I said, I got into it because I wanted to make my own schedule, and I wanted to choose what I wanted to do. It made me happy. Yes. Some people don't like being given that many choices, and that's okay. Like some people like being told what to do. Some people like having a set schedule, and some people like, they don't. I think that just depends on what that person specifically wants for themselves and why they choose to go into relief. I think a lot of people sometimes choose to go into relief because they think maybe it'll be easier, or they think that maybe they won't have to work as much. And in some cases that might be true, but not always, because as we all know, when you own your own business, it's not all sunshine and rainbows and butterflies. There's a lot of work that you have to do. And especially in the beginning, when I started my own relief business, there was a lot of networking. There was a lot of reaching out to clinics. There was a lot of negotiating with my charges. And I had a lot of clinics that were telling me I was too expensive. And so there was a lot of me trying to prove myself, and and a lot of people saying like, well, why would I hire you for relief when I have to hire a technician to teach them how to do everything in 6 months? And I was like, that's the difference, right? You don't have to teach me in 6 months. I can learn it in a couple of hours, and things like that. So it's owning your own business is not all sunshine and rainbows. It is a lot of hard work, and it's all on you in order for it to be successful. So you still have to show up. You still have to show up when you're sick. You still have to show up when you don't feel good. You still have to show up even if you don't feel like it. So sometimes when you work full time, you can call out sick and you get PTO, right? And you're like, I just didn't feel like going to work today. I needed a mental health day. But when you own your own business, that's different. So that's what it's like. How it depends. That's why I say it's how people perceive autonomy, because I think sometimes people perceive it as differently as how I would perceive it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Okay. Michelle, you have anything?
Well, I don't do relief, but I agree with everything that Jen said. It's doing what you want to do, even if it doesn't make the next person happy, it's going to make you happy. So yeah.
I definitely think there's this push for relief work, and with the perception of the autonomy, which there is, I would say, less perception. There's a lot of autonomy with that. If you want to go take a trip, you can take a trip, as long as you're planning your work days around and you're making enough money to make things happen. I mean, we do talk about health insurance, which is a thing. Actually, I'm not affiliated and I get paid to say this, but at the conference, there's a cool company that is offering relief and for individuals as a W-2 employee, and they'll come with health insurance and things like that. Thought it was an interesting concept. It's RSVP. I'll just leave it there, but interesting. My wife is pregnant and does relief, and she was talking about health insurance and stuff like that. But it was cool to think about and hear that this company was doing this.
That was one of my biggest hurdles when I decided to go relief, was what am I going to do about health insurance? Because health insurance is expensive, and I have to make enough money so that I can have health insurance still. And then we talked, me and Michelle talked about liability insurance, but that's not even a thing right now for technicians. And so, then we talk about general business insurance. And that's why and then that's why when clinics say, oh, well, you're really expensive, it's like, okay, well, I own my own LLC. I have business expenses that I have to cover, and I don't pay for my own, I don't have somebody paying for my health insurance. I have to pay for my health insurance. And then I still have to pay myself at the end of the day. So again, it's not all sunshine and rainbows like some people think that it is. It's hard work. And especially in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, also, Katelyn and I visited a private event put on by Dr. Joe Owens. Shout out Dr. Joe Owens, prosperity event. It was an amazing event. One of the topics that he touched on was entrepreneurs and veterinarians not being afraid to state your price and being okay with not everybody being able to afford that price.
Yes.
And in veterinary medicine, we've got to a place where we're, I feel like we look down on the prices. We get an estimate, we get a item like, oh, it costs that much. That's ridiculous. But we all understand that, especially in a privately owned practice that's not backed by corporate or anything. It's a struggle to keep things together.
Yeah, for sure. Knowing your worth is the most important thing.
Yeah,
it's hard within vet med of feeling you have to cater to everyone, and like Brian mentioned, we talked about as well, it's okay to have your niche and have those area or those specific individuals who you are catering to. It's okay to have that, because one thing that I've learned in coaching is that if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one, and you can't. And so that's been a big thing too, of where I had to niche down, because if you're speaking to everyone, then it's hard to find those people that are going to have your back 110%. You're going to have hard to have those people who fully trust you and your expertise and your recommendations if you don't have that specific niche when you're just talking to everyone. And so, it just builds authority and shows that you know what you're worth, for sure, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, great conversation, guys. So if technician-led businesses became normalized, how would veterinary medicine look 5 to 10 years from now?
Retention and compensation, I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like they go hand in hand, right? And I heard studies that the average shelf life for an LVT is 5 to 7 years, but then I believe I heard that it dropped to 4 to 6 years. And a lot of that is because we're not getting paid our worth. And so if business ownership was more available, no matter what you want to do with it, whether it's relief, mobile, whatever, if you have those opportunities to do that, I do feel like the retention would go up in vet med. I would love in 5 to 10 years for it to be normalized for a relief tech to own an LLC or a mobile tech to own an LLC and practice within the scope of their license. And with that would come, hey, let's say, do shelf lives of the next generation LVTs, could that look like 8 to 10 years, 10 to 12 years? Like, would we be able to push it to those numbers? And that would come back to compensation. Me and Jen have talked about how much we make amongst each other in private. And I don't know any other technicians that make as much as me and her. And I think that's the reason why we've been in our businesses. I've been in my business for 5 years now. And it's retention within my own business, but it's also because of the compensation. So I'm hoping it's more normalized within the industry in 5 to 10 years. And with that will come compensation. And with the compensation will come retention.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I am hoping to see just for veterinary, and we're talking about technicians and we're talking about veterinarians, but I also just want to talk about the patients, because I also think that just from what I've seen and through the businesses that we have interviewed already in our podcast, I have seen just so much better patient care and just different things of making things easier for our patients. And then when we make things easier for our patients, then we're making things easier for us as well. And we're making our jobs more enjoyable as well. So obviously burnout, things like that. Each individual, every single one of us is passionate about something specifically in veterinary medicine, whether that's nutrition, rehabilitation, hospice, all of those things. And if we are passionate about those specific things, and then we utilize that in a business, again, not only is that advantageous to us, but it is to our clients and to our patients as well. And I believe that would make it easier on veterinarians too, so that they're not taking on the bulk of I don't want to say minuscule things, because each one of those things is so important. But if you look at the vast amount of work that veterinarians have to do in a day, we can take so much of that load off with these businesses. And then it's good patient care. And then I feel like clients can trust us more as well. I feel like there's so much of that tension right now between clients and veterinarians, because they think that veterinarians are in it for the money, and they don't really want to listen to us, and they want to listen to people who are not professionals. So if we have more people in veterinary medicine that are owning their own businesses, I believe that we would also just get that respect as well from clients, and that trust. That trust was moving away for a while, but with these businesses that we've been interviewing, these technicians, I see us getting back to getting that trust again with our clients and good patient care.
Yeah, I love that. And like Michelle has mentioned, I think even in our last podcast episode together, is that she can set up that education with these clients that she has a trust with already. So then it brings these people into whatever hospital that, if she did recommend a hospital too, like I've worked there before, like I have a relationship, like these are the things they're probably going to recommend. Then you're going in with a client that already knows what to expect and has that. So yeah, like you said, in that aspect, because of what she's already experienced, Michelle has, and has shared with us in the last one. Totally agree, and can see that happening, and it's already starting to in a small scale, right, with the clients that she works with. And so it's really, really important, and completely agree on that. And kind of just to make sure that we getting close to time here. We want to kind of end this on an aspect of like, what would you guys tell a technician who knows they can't survive another decade in this field with the traditional model, but they don't know where to start?
Really quickly, I'm sorry, really quick. I want to input something really fast before we transition to this conversation, because I was just sitting here mulling over the conversation that we're having, and I want to give everybody who's listening a real world example of what we're talking about. And I want to thank Michelle and Jen and Endless Journeys podcast for not being afraid to collaborate with another podcast. Um, this is a real time example of what it looks like when veterinary medicine works together. You win, I win, we win.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to learn in this field. That is something that needs to happen. The gatekeeping has to stop, because we're only hindering each other. And it's really huge. And I have so much respect for you two for not being afraid to work with someone.
Yeah.
And there was nothing bad happened. There was nobody got less than the other.
Yeah.
It was just us working together, and we get to promote each other.
Right.
Now forevermore, you have unofficial partners. Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean, I know we're at time, we have to get going, but I really want the listeners, especially our veterinary professionals, to pick up on that, to understand that. And if you didn't, I wanted to make it plain, because I think that speaks to a larger issue. Anyway, go ahead, Katelyn. I'm sorry. I just wanted to...
Oh no, that's a great.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
Because like you said, we kind of alluded to it, but it wasn't put out in clear words. So that's great that you did that. But yeah, do you guys have any recommendations of anyone that is questioning if they can stay in the field even for another decade or a few years? Where they're not sure where to start. What would you recommend for them?
I would get out of that mindset of day-to-day living and thinking about what you have to do to survive tomorrow. Well, tomorrow I have to decide between paying for a repair for my car or paying for my cell phone. Okay, well, we got to figure that problem out. But also, what are you going to do in 5 years? What are you going to do in 10 years? What little steps or what mind frame can you get yourself in today to put yourself in a better position 5 months from now, 5 years from now? That's what you got to do, is while you're focusing on the here and now, you also got to be focusing on what you don't want to do this again in 5 years. So get out of that mindset.
Love it.
Yeah, and I would just reiterate again, just if there's something specifically that you're passionate about in veterinary medicine, and there's something that you're thinking about where you're like, oh my gosh, things would be so much better if XYZ, then look into that and see if you can be the person that can change that, because you can. Just because you don't have DVM behind your name doesn't mean that you're not capable of changing things in this world. So you just have to get out of that mindset that you can't do it, because we all can do it. We all can make a change, and we have to speak about these things. Don't stop talking about it, and don't listen to what other people say. Don't care about what other people think about your passion, because it's your passion. And you were given that passion for a reason. They were given a different passion for a different reason. And not everyone has to understand why you want to take those steps.
Right. And I know we've been already shouting out Dr. Joe Owens already, but another thing you mentioned, because his talk he had was so inspiring and just the right conversation, was, if not them, why not you?
Right.
Why not you?
Yep. You were given that thought, that passion, that idea for a reason. So do something about it.
Love it.
Michelle, Jennifer, thank you for the honesty, the leadership, and the work you're doing to keep technicians in this profession. Conversations like this don't just validate experience, they build blueprint. To everyone listening, the future of veterinary medicine isn't something that happens to us. It's something that we build.
Mm-hmm.